Welcome, beloved awakened one. I'm Monica Bermudez, and this is the podcast of the Ascended Earth, the transfiguration of the new you, the new human. We are an ever-evolving human, learning, growing, expanding, and upgrading. What you are and always will be is a divine, cosmic galactic source from source, more than you can imagine. But not all of us are living to our fullest potential. It is time to embrace what you are and unlock your magical keys and spiritual gifts. This podcast is a transmission of energy codes meant to unlock other dormant DNAs to remember, reconnect, revive, and renew you to the new human, the avatar that you are. This is the transfiguration of the new you. Hello, my beloved awakened one. I want to talk all about spiritual gifts in this episode of my podcast show. So I know it's been talked about so much in different avenues and different channels, but I want to explore a little more about what we mean by spiritual gifts. And in my channelings with my spirits and guides, one of the things that to me that I feel that spiritual gifts are a huge part of our soul, because our soul is an inheritance, I would say, of the divine source or the creator, as you know, some may say. So that makes us equivalent to the creator energy, because we are creative, powerful creative beings, and that is one of the biggest spiritual gifts that we hold inside of us. And it is our divine right, it is our divine gift to have these abilities within us. And I'll talk a little more about that because it's one of the things that for me that was evolving and changing so much before I jumped into launching my own business in the entrepreneur business that is working for the ascended energies, that I honestly didn't really think that I had much to contribute. But what I found was that whenever I would start working more on my own patterns and shifting them and transmuting them and alchemizing them, that it would start to open up these other doorways and these other portions within my cells and my DNA, and tapping more into my own soul's guidance and purpose of opening up my heart more so to my soul, that it also activated these other spiritual gifts within me. For example, I channel light language, and I never in my wildest dreams or ever imagined that I would be speaking in what, is called light language, which is like different forms of sounds, of vibrations and frequencies, if this is your first time hearing about it. And I remember though, like many years back, and this is way before I had my huge shift and alchemical transformation, before I jumped into my business and before I did any deep work on healing old patterns and transmuting them. I remember because I also grew up in mystical organization as a child. It's just that I never shared it in public. It was always private, and it was always shared with those who were the closest to me or who were a part of it as well. And so when I was, with this organization, which I still am. But the point is that I used to do so many meditations in the groups. And I remember one instance, and I was being reminded of this, that in one of those meditations, that was this guided meditation, I remember hearing these sounds. And it almost felt like it just wanted to come through me, like just all of a sudden burst out in these weird, for me, it was like, it wasn't English. It was just some other types of sounds that were just coming up that I was hearing. But at the time, I didn't know what to make of it. And I didn't want to start saying something and not know. For the audience that was listening to this guided meditation, all of a sudden, this spontaneous sound, it was very unheard of to even talk about light language then. And I would have thought it was very strange. So I didn't really know what to make of it. And I just, put it aside, and I thought maybe it's just one of those things that is just my imagination. Well, let me tell you that with imagination, there is some truth to that. And I feel that all of that has links to your spiritual gifts. So if you think that, you're imagining yourself as flying, as levitating and so forth, then there is something there that is something linked to your spiritual gifts. So the other thing about our spiritual gifts, we are all psychic. We are all channelers. We all have the ability to do this. Okay. And it is just a matter of really putting ourselves into that practice, into that intention of doing it, and really putting it into practice and making an effort to get past our doubts on our abilities. Because I feel, though, with these ascension energies, that we are definitely stepping into these new territories of what some will call the new human form. So we will still be human, but we will be the ascended humans. And in that ascended humans will come these other activated spiritual gifts, where I do see, when I project into the future and I see these visions, I can see us and people who are levitating, who are able to actually turn invisible, and also the telekinesis, the telepathy, all those things that I grew up very passionate about. I was so fascinated by it. And I feel like all of that will start to come and manifest itself in our physical reality. And I feel this for you as well. So if you're feeling like you've had this huge passion for certain abilities that, if you ever watch some of these superhero type movies, and I'm always interested and fascinated by watching so many, because it just takes us into this other world of imagination as well. And it says, looking at all these heroes that had these special abilities and capabilities for themselves, and they're such superheroes. And there is that part in us as well. You are also a superhero with your own spiritual gifts and spiritual abilities. And they're going to look so, amazing. Obviously, for those who can levitate now, it's already an amazing technique, right? If you were to see someone all of a sudden levitate, or somebody may get scared because they don't know what's going on, right? If they're not into this type of work, or I would say in a form awakened, or in an ascended way, and they might freak out, right? But for those who really know deep down inside, especially if you're listening to this and you're drawn to this, that you feel that there is this truth within you that knows, because your soul knows exactly what your abilities are. And that's why I always emphasize, start with your heart, in working with your heart for any blocks that is, especially if you've just had a heartbreak, and that could be any grief of any kind, whether that's, breaking up with a relationship, or a divorce, or just losing a job all of a sudden, or just anything else in your life that would cause that type of grief and heartbreak. Once you've healed or gone past some of these wounds in your hearts, and you really expanded and activated, you will also activate your passion within your own soul, and really tap into your own higher guidance and know what your spiritual gifts are. And so I feel that we are definitely getting to that level where we're going to see what will be considered superhuman. So it'll be this huge upgrade. And that's really what we're going through right now in this ascension energies. We're tapping into these whole new level of energies that we've never had before. And they're so accelerated. and so quantum, right? Who would have thought that, we'd be talking about this right now? And, like I said, growing up in my childhood, a lot of the things that I grew up with mysticism, with all these psychic abilities, was a very normal thing for me. And I always loved talking about it. But again, I didn't talk about it in public openly like I am right now in this podcast show. And there will come a time where we will all be talking very freely and openly with one another about these abilities without anybody saying or labeling us as being, something else that would scare somebody else. I mean, now, I hear in some of the spiritual communities say the word woo-woo, and I've never grew up with that word again, because to me, this was like a normal talk. For me, talking about psychic abilities, talking about telepathy, talking about telekinesis and all those things was a normal thing for me to talk about because I grew up with it. But when I started to really get into the public view and start, working on my business and expanding on that, I would hear some, for the spiritual community say the word woo-woo. And I would be like, what is that? It's like, and then when I heard what it was, I was like, oh, okay, well, it's just a terminology, but it doesn't mean anything to me. So at some point I did kind of start, saying it because everybody else was saying it. But then I started to feel, from my own guidance, like, hey, you don't have to like follow the rest of the world, or this other trend of others saying this word. Use your own word, speak the raw truth, speak of who you are. You already know, a lot of this stuff, and just say it. And so, part of me was still kind of like this, hesitant part. Am I really going to talk about this in public? What are people going to think? What are they going to say? And so I really had to like work also on my own doubts and my own fear when it came to like public speaking, especially about these areas. And so now that I have this space here in my podcast, I feel like I can really speak freely. I can speak openly with you, because I know those who are being drawn to this already have this insight, already have this knowingness within. And it's like this being drawn for this calling to receive more of this information. And so that is the intent of this whole show. And so that's the part, that is of your spiritual gifts, your spiritual knowingness as well, the knowingness within your soul, and just really tapping into your own higher guidance, which is a huge part of your soul, because you are also a creator, just like Source is a creator. We are collaborating together in this creative force of energy. And so I can see us, equivalent to like, you ever see the movies Star Trek? No, not Star Trek, but Star Wars, yes. Where it says, may the force be with you. And I always like to think of, may the creative force be with you. And so that's exactly how I want to leave you with, and knowing that the creative force is always with you, because you are always this force of the divine, and you have very powerful spiritual gifts within you. And so I highly encourage you to really take a look at those spiritual gifts that you hold within yourself, and trust and have confidence that they are a huge part of you. And know that you have that ability for the psychic powers, the telepathy, the telekinesis. Telekinesis is the ability to move objects with your mind. And all of those things I feel will be, expanded so much more on this new earth that we already are on. And this is just the beginning. And I know that some are probably already experiencing this. And they're starting to awaken or activate more of these abilities, and they're going to start to flourish. Now, I started to working with some clients when I was doing a lot more of the privates, and I would have them, do certain light language to transmute a lot of the patterns of, that were related to heartbreaks or any type of grief. And every time that I would do that to work with their heart, all of a sudden these abilities in them expanded, and they had the ability to read other people's minds, or they would start to get their clairaudience became very clear. Or, there were other abilities like clairvoyance all of a sudden just sparked and kicked off. Now let's jump, into these clairaudience. You hear the term clair type, right? And it's the ability of, I believe the definition is the ability to see beyond, our five senses, right? You have the sixth sense, okay? Clairaudience is the ability to hear, the sound or voices that are, non-physical. And then the clairvoyance is be able to see the future or prophesize or see, beyond the physical eyes or the sight. And then you have the, there's a claircognizance, which is an inner knowing. And it's just knowing without having to have studied all the material. And it's like this inner wisdom, as I would call it, or the wisdom of the heart type thing. And I feel that there's another one, clairsentient. There's, the clairsentient, yes. The clairsentient is to be able to feel with your body, to sense, right? It's this feeling that it's almost like another term could be associated to like a gut feeling. And, so those are, some examples of the clairs. And some of those clairs may be stronger with some. They may be born with it already in that, ability. Whereas some, and then some of the other ones are, not as strong. But it doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to develop them. You do. You have the ability to grab, your strongest ones that you have right now and be able to use that to develop with your other ones that may not be as strong. Because all it is just a matter of practice. And the more you practice it, the more that you'll become more intuitive, that more psychic, the more, clairsentient or claircognizant or clairaudience or clairvoyant. And then there's the other one where it's about the taste buds. So if you ever are about to cook, for instance, if you are into recipes or cooking and stuff, and you could just taste the food even before you make it, that is, a part of the clair of the taste buds. And the name is escaping me right now, but I believe you understand what I mean by these examples of what I'm sharing. And so I want to leave you with this and knowing that you have this great divine power because you also come from the source of all the abilities. So you have inherited these spiritual abilities within yourself, and you are your own hero. Just remember that you are your own hero in the things that you do. And I believe in you, and I trust that you will find that path forward on the things that you wish to manifest in this life, because in your own physical reality, you have that ability. You have the ability to make the changes in any situation that you find yourself. And it's just a matter of that determination, of the willingness to want to do those change. So I am sending you so much love, and I will see you in the next episode of my show. Bye for now. Much love. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to click like, save, and share with others so they can also experience what you just experienced. And stay tuned for some more high vibe episodes. And I'll be connecting with you in the next quantum field. Sending you so much love.